For many INFJs, life feels like carrying a secret curse. Every day begins already drained, as if the night never offered rest. Decisions that others make in seconds stretch into endless debates inside your mind, each path branching into 1,000 futures, each one heavy with consequence. Inside, it is a battlefield, visions pulling one way, conscience another, doubt another still, until the soul feels torn into pieces. And when you finally move, perfection whispers that it is not enough, that nothing you create will ever measure up. It is no wonder that some say, "I hate being an INFJ." The fatigue, the stuckness, the inner war, the impossible standards, these can make life itself feel unbearable. But the question cannot be escaped. What if these struggles were taken away? What if the exhaustion turned into endless energy, the hesitation into quick decisiveness, the conflict into unity, the perfectionism into indifference? Would life finally feel lighter, free of all that weight? The burdens of the INFJ begin within. Before the world even presses in with its demands, the inner life creates its own weight, subtle, invisible, but relentless. The first burden is fatigue, not simply the tiredness of a long day, but the exhaustion of a nervous system that rarely rests. INFJs are constantly scanning, absorbing, processing. Even in solitude, the mind runs like an engine that cannot be switched off, replaying conversations, anticipating outcomes, searching for meaning. Mornings begin already heavy, as though the night did nothing to restore what was spent. Tasks that others complete without thought, sending an email, attending a meeting, answering a phone call, become mountains when approached with a body and mind already drained. To live in this constant depletion is to feel that life itself is always one step ahead, and you are always lagging behind. The second burden is indecision. For most, a choice is a fork in the road. For the INFJ, each choice is a tree that branches infinitely. Every option opens into dozens of futures, each carrying potential losses that cannot be unseen. What should be simple becomes paralyzing. Which career path to take, whether to end or repair a relationship, even which project to begin on a free afternoon. Others move quickly, but the INFJ remains stuck in possibility, trapped by the weight of consequences. In the words of Viktor Frankl, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. For the INFJ, that space often becomes a prison. Too many responses, too many outcomes, too much responsibility. Then comes the tug-of-war within. Few types are pulled in as many directions at once as the INFJ. Introverted intuition strains toward vision, demanding the search for patterns and meaning. Extroverted feeling pulls toward harmony, urging them to prioritize others' needs. Introverted thinking whispers with analysis and skepticism, questioning every assumption. And inferior extroverted sensing drags them suddenly into impulses or sensory escapes. To be an INFJ is to live in a constant internal negotiation, as though four different selves are steering in different directions. This inner fragmentation breeds restlessness and self-doubt. Whichever side is chosen, another part of the psyche whispers that it has been betrayed. Finally, perfectionism. The INFJ rarely feels content unless actions, projects, and relationships align with their highest inner standards. Work must not only be done, it must carry depth. Commitments must not only be honored, they must resonate with integrity. But the world rewards speed more than depth, compromise more than conviction. To meet those demands is to feel false. To resist them is to fall behind. And so the INFJ lives in a bind, forever chasing an ideal that can never be fully embodied, forever condemning themselves for the failure to reach it. Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Yet for the INFJ, becoming who they are often feels like a standard so high it can never be achieved. These four burdens, fatigue, indecision, inner conflict, and perfectionism, interlock like the bars of a cage. Each alone would be heavy. Together they create a pattern of self-doubt, paralysis, and exhaustion. And when these pressures converge, the suspicion grows unbearable. If this is what it means to be an INFJ, how could anyone love it? The inner burdens of fatigue, indecision, inner conflict, and perfectionism are only half the story. The outer world, with its structures and demands, piles on its own forms of pressure. These are the battles fought in public, at work, in relationships, in daily life. The first of these outer burdens is the refusal to play politics. Many workplaces reward not only competence, but strategy, knowing who to flatter, how to navigate hierarchies, when to promote oneself, and when to undermine a rival. For the INFJ, this feels intolerable. To manipulate feels dishonest, to flatter feels false, to boast feels humiliating. Their conscience binds them to authenticity, but authenticity does not always win promotions. They watch as others climb through charm and maneuvering while they remain in the shadows, skilled but overlooked. The world rewards exactly the qualities they resist. Jung once said, "The shoe that fits one person pinches another. There is no recipe for living that suits all cases." For the INFJ, the shoes of politics and hypocrisy always pinch, but refusing to wear them often means walking barefoot on glass. Then comes social and relational exhaustion. INFJs long for connection, yet every encounter drains them. They listen deeply. They absorb unspoken feelings. They carry moods that others release without thought. A simple gathering can feel like a storm passing through the body. Even joyful company leaves behind fatigue, as though presence itself were an act of sacrifice. And yet withdrawal is no solution. Solitude restores, but too much solitude deepens loneliness. To belong demands energy, but energy is scarce. This paradox leaves INFJs torn between the ache of isolation and the exhaustion of connection. Existential heaviness, too, weighs down the outer life. It is not only an internal mood, but a filter through which everything is experienced. A dinner with friends becomes shadowed by questions of meaning. A career achievement is clouded by doubts of purpose. Even moments of joy carry the reminder of their fragility. While others live more lightly, content to move from task to task, the INFJ cannot stop asking why. Nietzsche wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. But when the why is hidden, the how becomes unbearable, and the simplest aspects of life collapse under the weight of unanswered questions." Finally, there is the tyranny of purpose. For many, life consists of routines that can be completed without reflection. For the INFJ, routine without meaning feels impossible. Laundry, paperwork, errands, obligations, each demands a justification beyond itself. Motivation vanishes if the act does not connect to something larger. The result is paralysis in the face of the ordinary. What others accomplish easily becomes an endless struggle, because for the INFJ, to act without meaning is to act falsely. And yet, the world demands action whether meaning is present or not. The tension becomes unbearable. Either betray one's inner compass or fall behind in the march of daily life. These outer burdens join the inner ones to form a weight that feels insurmountable. Integrity blocks advancement. Sensitivity drains energy. The search for purpose slows progress. And comparison to others who seem to live so lightly confirms the suspicion that being an INFJ is less a gift than a curse. And in those moments, the thought rises again, sharper than before. If it were possible to discard these struggles, who would not seize the chance? Imagine for a moment that the inner burdens of the INFJ could be erased one by one, each replaced with its neat and efficient opposite. What would life look like if the struggles that weigh most heavily were gone? Begin with fatigue. For the INFJ, exhaustion is not only physical, but psychic. It comes from absorbing moods, noticing undercurrents, carrying what others let go. But imagine this drain disappearing. Picture waking with boundless energy, moving through each day without pause, immune to the subtle signals of others. Gatherings would no longer tire, reflection would no longer consume, silence would no longer be necessary, stamina would stretch endlessly. Yet the cost of such endurance is hard to name. Energy would remain untouched only because nothing entered deeply enough to disturb it. Would that kind of strength feel like freedom or like emptiness masquerading as resilience? Then, indecision. For most, a choice is simple. For the INFJ, it is a tree that branches into endless futures. But what if hesitation vanished? Imagine decisions falling instantly, one after another, with no second guessing, no haunting doubts, no heavy sense of consequence. Life would speed forward. Momentum would finally belong to you. Yet if decisions no longer carried weight, would futures shrink into single lines, stripped of depth? Would the gain in clarity conceal a loss of vision? As Viktor Frankl wrote, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. What would remain if that space disappeared? Now consider the tug-of-war within. INFJs often feel torn between intuition's visions, feelings' demands for harmony, thinking's critiques, and sensing's impulses. Life becomes a negotiation between voices pulling in opposite directions. But what if the conflict dissolved? Imagine the psyche moving in a single line, without friction, without contradiction, no inner protests, no competing drives, just unity of will. Progress would be swift, but without that friction, would the richness of inner dialogue vanish too? Would a unified self lose the depth that comes from wrestling with itself? A mind without conflict may be calm, but is it also reduced? Finally, perfectionism. For the INFJ, no effort feels complete unless it carries meaning. The demand for alignment, for depth, for integrity is constant. But what if perfectionism were gone? Imagine being content with good enough, satisfied with what is finished, indifferent to whether it resonates with the soul. Projects would be released quickly, mistakes ignored, progress measured in speed rather than depth. The world would approve. Yet what happens when the inner fire that demanded more is extinguished? Does convenience replace conscience? Does efficiency replace vision? Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." If perfectionism disappears, does the privilege vanish too, leaving only a surface where depth once resided? Each imagined erasure brings relief, but also absence. To remove fatigue, indecision, inner conflict, and perfectionism is to create a life that seems easier, but perhaps thinner. The question is not yet answered whether such a life would be enviable or unbearable, but it waits in the silence. What is lost when the inner burdens disappear? Now imagine the external struggles of the INFJ being stripped away one by one. What would life look like if the obstacles faced in public, at work, in relationships, in daily responsibilities were erased and replaced with effortless opposites? Start with career and politics. The INFJ resists flattery, refuses to manipulate, recoils at boasting. But what if that resistance vanished? Imagine moving through professional life with ease, knowing exactly whom to charm, when to undermine, how to claim credit. Promotions arrive quickly, influence grows, and the climb feels natural. There is no hesitation, no moral tug-of-war, no discomfort at cutting corners. But in this smooth ascent, what becomes of authenticity? Would the ability to win so easily feel like triumph, or like wearing a mask that can never be removed? Then consider social exhaustion. Normally, INFJs leave gatherings depleted, having absorbed too many moods and carried too many unspoken tensions. But what if that drain were gone? Imagine being endlessly energized by company. Parties would feel invigorating, conversations would never feel heavy, the emotions of others would pass through like air. Friendships would multiply, networks would expand, silence would never be needed. Yet if nothing weighed on the spirit, would relationships retain their gravity? Would every connection remain equal, shallow, interchangeable? Without the need for solitude, might discernment vanish as well? Now turn to existential heaviness. INFJs cannot help but ask why. Why the world suffers, why life ends, why meaning must be pursued. But imagine that weight erased. Each day would unfold lightly, no questions pressing at the edges, no shadow over joy. Work would be only work, dinner only dinner, a conversation only a moment of sound. The burden of seeking purpose would fall away, leaving only simplicity. But would simplicity feel like freedom, or would it hollow life into a string of unexamined hours? Nietzsche once warned, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. If the why is removed, can the how endure?" Finally, the tyranny of purpose. For the INFJ, even small tasks feel impossible without connection to meaning. But imagine being free of that demand. Laundry folded without thought, paperwork finished without resistance, obligations completed without a whisper of protest. Productivity soars, responsibilities vanish easily, nothing stalls for lack of inspiration. Yet without the need for purpose, does purpose itself erode? If meaning is no longer required, does life collapse into routine, efficient but empty? Each of these erasures paints a picture of ease, success without conscience, connection without exhaustion, life without heaviness, productivity without struggle. Yet beneath the ease lies a quiet unease, as though something essential has been traded away. The conclusion is not yet clear, but the question rises: when these struggles disappear, what remains of the INFJ who once carried them? Now gather all these erasures together. Imagine an INFJ granted a miracle, every weakness exchanged for its opposite. They wake with boundless energy, decisive to the point of ruthlessness, unbothered by conscience or hesitation. In the workplace, they master politics, flattering superiors, undermining rivals, climbing without guilt. In social spaces, they never tire. They charm endlessly, build networks without depth, discard people without pause. At home, they complete tasks mechanically, never asking why, never searching for meaning. They compare themselves to no one, not because they have outgrown insecurity, but because ambition has narrowed to self-interest alone. On the surface, they appear unstoppable, efficient, bold, untouchable. But beneath the shine is a hollow figure, ruthless, arrogant, willing to profit from the weakness of others. Empathy has hardened into calculation, authenticity has dissolved into manipulation, vision has been replaced by appetite. This is not an INFJ freed of burdens, but a shadow of what remains when those burdens are erased. Nietzsche warned, "Beware that, when fighting monsters, you yourself do not become a monster." And here stands the proof. In trading away the very struggles that once defined them, the INFJ has become something monstrous. Every INFJ eventually learns that trying to live a normal life is a losing battle. Normalcy demands efficiency, quick choices, small talk, and a tolerance for shallow motives. But the INFJ is not built this way. Fatigue, indecision, inner conflict, and perfectionism become unbearable precisely because the INFJ is measuring themselves against standards that were never meant for them. An INFJ in a corporate environment will notice this most sharply. The rewards go to those who flatter, who maneuver, who prioritize visibility over substance. The INFJ sees through it, refuses to play, and suffers for it. They feel broken because they cannot adapt, when the truth is that they were never designed for that world. Jung once observed, "The shoe that fits one person pinches another. There is no recipe for living that suits all cases." The INFJ's shoe was never meant to fit the road of conventional success. The same holds true in relationships. Where others thrive on light, frequent interaction, the INFJ is quickly exhausted. Where others are satisfied with casual bonds, the INFJ aches for depth. Measured by the standards of normal, this looks like weakness or failure. But it is not. It is the evidence of a psyche wired for a different journey. As long as the INFJ clings to the idea of fitting in, they will feel cursed by their nature. The fatigue will seem like laziness, the hesitation like incompetence, the intensity like dysfunction. Only when they release the pursuit of normalcy can they begin to see that their burdens were never meant to be lived as flaws, but as thresholds into another kind of life. If normal life is not the INFJ's path, what is? The answer lies in the very design of the type itself. Every burden carried by the INFJ is also a threshold, a signal that their story belongs to the pattern of the hero's journey. Fatigue is not proof of weakness. It is the sign of a soul porous enough to feel what others cannot. That sensitivity is costly, but it is also the very gift that allows the INFJ to sense the hidden currents of life. Indecision is not incompetence, but the mind's attempt to hold multiple futures in view at once. It is the raw material of vision, the very thing that allows the INFJ to anticipate outcomes before others even see the first signs. The refusal to play politics is not naivete but conscience, the inner vow to never sacrifice integrity for gain. And the tyranny of purpose, though it stalls ordinary routines, is the mark of a spirit that cannot move without meaning. When seen this way, the INFJ's life is not an accident of personality, but an archetypal pattern. They are the ones called away from the ordinary world, pressed by burdens that make comfort impossible, and invited to walk the path of transformation. This is why the INFJ will never thrive by blending in. They will only come alive by answering the call that their burdens announce. The INFJ's task, then, is not mitigation, but destiny. To see their struggles not as flaws to be erased, but as invitations to become the rare kind of person who can endure the weight of vision, carry it through trials, and return with something the world desperately needs. Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." For the INFJ, becoming who they are means embracing the hero's journey hidden inside their nature. For those who wish to go deeper into this archetypal path, we have explored it fully in our reflection on the INFJ and INTJ hero's journey. You'll find a link in the description. To be an INFJ is to live with struggles that often feel unbearable, the fatigue, the hesitation, the conflict, the impossible standards. It is tempting to wish them away, to imagine an easier life. But as we saw, ease without those burdens creates only emptiness. The truth is that these struggles were never meant to fit within a normal life. They are the markings of a different path, the path of the hero's journey. Every INFJ who stops trying to blend in and instead accepts the summons discovers that their burdens are not chains, but thresholds. They lead to vision, to conscience, to depth, to the capacity to transform. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." For the INFJ, that privilege means embracing a life that will never be ordinary, but may, if the call is heeded, become extraordinary. If you're ready to explore that path more deeply, join us here at dePsyphered. Subscribe, and let's continue walking this journey together toward becoming who you truly are. And if this resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments, pass this video along to someone who needs to hear it, and ring the bell so you won't miss future explorations. Every act of connection helps keep this community alive, and every voice adds to the journey.